Good morning. My name is Sarah Schalke, Sarahschhielke. With me, I have Alisa Swartz, Allisa Swartz, daughter to Karen Garner, Shannon Stewart, Steward, daughter-in-law to Karen Garner, and Drew Stewart, grandson. Today, we are announcing a settlement reached in Karen Garner's federal civil rights lawsuit against the City of Loveland and its officers for their horrific assault upon her, for their failure to provide her with medical care for hours afterwards, and their supervisor's blatant and appalling efforts to cover it all up. She was 73. She had dementia. She was one of the most vulnerable members of our community, and she was carrying wildflowers. Her crime: she had forgotten to pay for $13.88 of items from Walmart. $13.88 is the business interest that Loveland believed was worth inflicting this atrocity. Today, they pay Ms. Garner $3 million. The amount of this settlement is likely record-breaking for a civil rights case that doesn't involve death or permanent disfigurement. And not only does its amount send a powerful message, but the speed with which it was obtained does as well. Just 4 months since we filed the lawsuit. However, many know we intended to fight. Some may ask why we settled it all. We want to answer that this morning. Karen, mother to 3, Nana to 9, is in declining health. As many of us know, dementia is a terrible, heart-wrenching disease. And the trauma that Loveland's police department inflicted on Karen only made that worse and accelerated her decline. Her family has had to grieve this slow, devastating, ongoing loss of their beloved mother in the public eye. And all throughout, they have been unable to speak with her. They've been unable to ask Karen what she would want to do, what she would want her legacy and her final chapter of this case to be, if she could tell us. Well, a few weeks ago, as we were wrestling over what to do and whether to settle this case or to pursue years of litigation, we came across a letter that Karen had written to her children and her grandchildren a few years ago when the dementia had just begun. When she was signing the power of attorney that would give up so much of her independence and acceptance of the horrible things that this disease would do to her. And we wanted to share some of the words that she wrote. Karen wrote, "All I've wanted all my life was someone to love, adore, and care about me. And I find the world scary now, being alone. So value love as a treasured gift. It is all that matters. I want the best and fullest lives possible for my children and grandchildren. And I feel the world is getting crueler. Don't make it any rougher for yourselves by living in the past. Look out the front window. Don't dwell on what's in the rearview mirror." We were struck by the poignancy of Karen's words. Her last wishes for her life and for her family showed us that closure and peace were paramount for her loved ones. This settlement provides that. It allows Karen and her family to avoid the toll that prolonged litigation exacts. It also was obtained quickly enough to be enjoyed by Karen herself, which is so important because she is the one who went through this hell. And she now requires around-the-clock care, and she'll have the best the world can offer. The family would like to make a statement, and Shannon's going to make that statement now before I finish remarks.
On behalf of this family, this incident shocked us by exposing us to the lowest form of human behavior and indecency, particularly by people that should be respected, people that should know how to show respect, and an inability just to do the right thing. But conversely, this family was also overwhelmed by the support and the love of people in the City of Loveland as well as around the world. It was overwhelming and got us through some of the darkest times, and for that, we say thank you. We can't express how grateful that we are. The people of Loveland are the heart of that city, and now we're able to have a voice to join them to call for more reform and call for more justice from the Loveland Police Department and the City Council. Thank you.
This settlement brings a measure of justice to the Garner family, but it does not deliver full justice, particularly to this community. Full justice to Karen Garner and this community will happen at the moment that every individual who participated in this atrocity or fostered the conditions and culture that made its happening possible is held accountable. And that means a change in leadership. Those in power in Loveland have created a culture of police officers who have no respect, no care, no compassion for the people they're supposed to be keeping safe. A culture of police officers who back one another before they stand up for a vulnerable citizen they're supposed to protect. A culture of police officers who are so quick to choose violence, gratuitous violence. The violence from the Loveland police officers that we are seeing in these videos has to stop. Beating up grandmothers, shooting beloved pets, breaking the arm of a good Samaritan, berating and intimidating a citizen who has the courage to stop and make a complaint about excessive force. Shooting, and we learned this morning, tragically killing a mentally ill teenager in his backyard. And then typing up blue team reports where everybody, all the way up the chain of command, creates an echo chamber of approval for the horrors that just went on. The only way it's going to stop us to change the culture, the only way to change this culture is to replace the leadership. We have to get rid of the people who created it. And as we've seen in the past few months, that type of broader accountability and reform is quite elusive in this city. And that is because the toxic leadership that continues to let down and embarrass this city is deeply entrenched. It's devastatingly stubborn. Because we all know Sergeant Metzler should not still be employed as a police officer, but he is. We all know Chief Ticer needs to resign, but he hasn't. We all know that Don Overcash, Mayor Pro Tem and City Councilor, best friend of Chief Ticer, and the #1 individual on the City Council demanding blind support for police and reckless pursuit of business interests and prioritization of those businesses over the lives of citizens, needs to be ousted from office. But there he sits on the dais. These men are the seeds that planted the rotten tree that is the Loveland Police Department. They are the good old boys. They are the old guard. And in order for this community to actually heal, in order for these incidents to stop happening, they have to go. In the 4 months since this lawsuit was filed, the world has looked on, waiting for that to occur, demanding it. I'll never forget the night before I released the booking area video, what I said to my husband. The night before I released that video with Ready for the Pop, the laughing, the fist pumping while Karen suffered 10 feet away, I told him, I said, if the chief does not resign after I release something like this, then the problems in Loveland are so much worse than even I can imagine. And indeed, the video came out. The world was appalled. Everyone called for Ticer to step down, and he did not. Rather than show any true leadership by stepping down, we have instead seen continued denials, misdirection, and intransigence. And I want to quote Chief Ticer here, what he said in the release the city sent out last night to announce the settlement. He wrote, "There is no excuse for what happened to Miss Garner. We have agreed on steps we need to take to begin building back trust. While these actions won't change what Ms. Garner experienced, they will serve to improve this police department and hopefully restore faith that the LPD exists to serve those who live in and visit Loveland. I have a response to Chief Ticer. Enough. I am sick of having to be the only person holding bad police work accountable in your department. I am sick of being the lead internal investigator at the LPD, but I won't stop, so let me make you an offer. You want to build back trust? You want to restore faith to the LPD? Resign. This community cannot heal until there is accountability from leadership, so let me try to help. I said in my press release this morning that I would be making a big announcement here. Well, here it is. Chief Ticer, Loveland, I'm going to put my money where your mouth is. My announcement is this. If Chief Ticer resigns or is fired in the next 30 days, I will donate $50,000 of my own money to any dementia or Alzheimer's charity of his choice. I'm going to say that again because I mean it. If Ticer resigns or is fired in 30 days, $50,000 to any Alzheimer's or dementia charity of his choice. That's justice to this community. That's the change they deserve. It's the change they have been demanding. And it's the closure and peace you personally owe them. So let's get on with it. I'll now take a few questions.
Really quick, we've seen this before with other police departments where we see a police chief resign, but we still continue to see a lot of those deep-rooted problems that you spoke about. How do you address those really deep-rooted issues that we continue to see, regardless if the chief is there or not?
I think the most important thing is just a break in leadership to show that there is accountability. The real issue we have right now is there seems to be a deep foundational understanding in Loveland that nobody ever has to be held accountable, that they're always going to cover for one another. There has to be a break in that to stop the cycle of it. Other questions? I know you got one, Matt.
Yeah. Alyssa steps in for the
Absolutely. It's Elisa.
Alyssa, sorry. Share your thoughts about the settlement and the chapter that it ends for your family and your mom.
The settlement will help fund the 24/7 care that we have her in, and that will be a big help towards that care.
And if I could ask you a question as well, how is she doing, and is she aware of any of this that happened to her? The first part is, how is she doing today? How is she coping, and does she know what happened?
She has good days and bad days. Just like anybody with dementia, it's basically you're losing them twice. So you lose them through the dementia, and then we're going to lose her again, which hurts.
How would you describe this day for you and your family?
It's good to know that we can keep her in care and have her cared for. But there needs to be some change in this department. I don't want to see this happen to anyone else's families. Again, I don't want to see it.
What's your message to the chief and to the police department?
We need change. We need them to change.
Step up or step down.
From the family's perspective, can someone tell us what it was like to read that letter from your mom and to feel like she was speaking to you guys today?
First of all, I want to thank Sarah. And every one of you see her tenacity and you see her passion, but what you don't see is her compassion. And we made no decisions without Sarah saying two questions. Can you handle this emotionally? And what would your mom want? And in the process of going through some of Karen's things and getting her further settled, we found that letter. and we really felt that God had given us her words where she couldn't provide them for us. And it gave us a great sense of relief, and it gave us a great sense of humility and just the feeling that we were acting in her best interest as we moved forward.
Have you been able to communicate with her reaching this settlement? Has she been able to understand?
Karen has spoken nothing about this incident since the morning after, where she repeatedly said, "Why did they do this to me and why did they hurt me?" We were advised by her caregivers in the dementia unit not to probe because we didn't want to stir the PTSD that came along with it, and we would only do that if Karen brought it up and Karen had questions. So our focus is Karen getting her tapioca pudding, Karen getting new pajamas, Karen getting fresh flowers in her room, visiting her weekly, and taking care of her day-to-day living. That's our only focus with Karen.
And Sarah, what are the mechanics of the settlement? When do you think you'll actually write the check, and how's this going to work?
Because Karen is incapacitated, a probate court does need to approve the settlement first. A conservator will be appointed. That process is expected to take a couple months. Once that's done, the check is to be issued within 2 weeks.
And then what were the negotiations like over the last few months? How would you describe it?
Stressful. There was so much more at stake in this case than money. But there's also a family shouldering a lot, a big burden that we needed to be cognizant of. You know, there's a lot of work to be done here, and I think the Garner family has been so strong and courageous and taking on a lot of institutionalized and systemic issues, but we also had to ask ourselves what Karen would want, and I always wanted to just make sure to be fair to the family who's grieving something so heavy. It, more than anything, Karen's legacy was important, and that's what we were trying to keep an eye to. And we're not going to stop fighting for change, but this number we felt was significant enough to be an appropriate coda on her legacy. One more question.
Lisa, I'll ask you one more. Would you like to talk a little bit about the message that you hope this large dollar amount sends to the police department?
I'm hoping that this dollar amount makes them realize that they do need to make changes in that department, and that we're not messing around. When we're asking them to show those changes, we mean it. It needs to stop.
And I'm sorry, last one. Would you agree with Sarah that this was about more than money for you and your family?
Yes. Yes, this is justice for Mom. This is justice for my mom.
Can I elaborate on that? Along with a lengthy trial comes a lot of information that cannot be brought to light until the end of that trial. And we realized that any internal investigations, the H&H report, all the evidence in this case is going to be locked down for at least 2 to 3 years until that verdict came in. And we didn't think that was fair. We didn't think that was fair to the people of Loveland and everybody who has a question about the whys in this case. So it was very important to us to get that information released, get it out of the legal system, and get it in the public where it belongs.
Thank you, everybody. That's it for
Thank you.
us. Thank you.